The new channel. The new channel. Hashtag TNC Now.
The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following shows are those of the host, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel. Our passion transforms a community channel that sees all things new. My name is Jennifer Nuya, live streaming from Cavite, Philippines. You're watching Stories from the Fringe. Please let me know that you can hear me well by typing into the comment section where you are joining us from today. And you can also use the same chat box to drop in your comments, ask your questions, or whatever you would like to share with us. We would love to see your comments. And if this is your first time tuning in to Stories from the Fringe, Stories from the Fringe aims to push for more diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in all aspects of our lives. And we believe and we are committed to creating a world where individual differences like race, gender, class, ability, among others, are not only seen and understood, but also accepted and celebrated. We can all be a part of this collective vision. To make the most of our time together, we encourage you to turn off all distractions, prepare to take notes, mental win, or just be fully engaged with our guest today. We are thrilled to have on our show a good classmate of mine several years ago, Dr. Miriam Delos Santos. Hello, Miriam. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm sorry. I have to greet you by apologizing, but I couldn't hear the audio, your audio. I could hear the ad, but good morning, everyone. I apologize, but my audio seems to be having some problem. But I'm still very glad to be here. But if you can fix the audio for now, maybe that would be wonderful. Sorry.
It's perfectly fine. Can you try? Can you try to reconnect? Well, that's technology for us. Awesome. Well, that happens. All right. So, just a quick background while we're waiting for Dr. Miriam De Los Santos to reconnect. Dr. Miriam De Los Santos is a PhD director, Office for Mission and Identity of Ateneo de Manila, org and leadership development expert. She's also a freelance host and singer, a trainer, and consultant. She's also a writer and she hosts the Radyo Katipunan. Uh, they are active on Facebook and also Ateneo is home Facebook page. So we were classmates way back, if I'm not mistaken, 2016 to 2019 when I was taking my uh, graduate diploma of strategic HR management and development, and also graduate diploma of organization development. Wow, that's a couple years back. How time flies. All right, so um, thank you so much for those who are watching right now. Thank you for your support. I would like at this juncture thank our avid viewers. Thank you, Thelma Cachuela Daniega. Also, thank you to Dr. Alex Reyes. Thank you for tuning in, Teresita Linus Manalo, Ezekiel Magbanwa. Thank you also for your support, Erwin Manansala, Gino Romano de Cepeda, also Pilar Bulawin. Thank you also to Mahusay Nuya. Hello, hello, Andra. Hello also for Check team, and also thank you for your support, Melvin Phillips. Thank you so much for confirming that you can hear as well. And thank you also to Faisal Nandinikana, Razel Rocha, and thank you, of course, to our direct Monica, for always supporting us at the back end, making sure that everything is working fine. All right. So let's see if Miriam is able to reconnect. Awesome. So Miriam, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. I am sorry for the sudden interruption earlier, but I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for the invite.
No worries, no worries. I have been also on the other side of the fence when I was a guest in another show, and I also kept on logging on and off because of the intermittent internet connection. So I understand, I fully understand. And of course, our viewers also understand. All right, so Dr. Miriam Delos Santos, welcome again to the show. It's lovely to see you again and reconnect after so many years. And can you please provide our viewers a brief introduction about you and the work that you do?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Miriam Delos Santos. Right now, my main work is in the Ateneo de Manila University as Director for the Office for Mission and Identity, or OMI. What we do in the office is we provide formation and training mainly on interiority and spirituality to our employees. At the same time, I do consultancies on organization development, leadership formation, and I conduct different workshops, self-awareness, leadership, etc. And I do consultancies in a sense that I guide organizations as well in terms of their plans, their vision, their implementation. And at the same time, okay, I just want to say that I also write every now and then. So recently we launched a book journal, this one. It's titled Despite the Distance. It's a book journal to reflect on the pandemic, because at the height of the pandemic in 2020 until last year, we were publishing mini essays, reflections, etc. daily during weekdays. And so a few months ago, we decided to put them together in a collection to provide people a chance to look back at their pandemic experience. That's why there's also a journal part, just so we can process well what we went through, so we can move forward. So in essence, I'm also a writer, though I'm reluctant to admit it, but yes, I may be.
But you are, because that's the proof in your book.
Sorry?
You said that you're reluctant to call yourself a writer, but you already have the proof.
Yes. In fact, but when we were publishing the reflections during the pandemic, so we started March 2020 until last year, November, we were publishing it anonymously. Primarily, we were saying it's from the office. So people were asking, who from the office, specifically, who's writing it? But, with the cutesy and all, and say, oh, it's from us, etc. But when the book was published, so of course an author had to be named.
Yes.
So that's when everyone learned that it was me. But I still really do believe that it's an office effort, though I was the one writing the reflection. So yeah, I guess.
Wonderful. So you're the one who really thought of the idea behind the book, right? And but you said that it's a collective effort. Now, what urged you to start with this book project?
Hmm. Well, let me just go back a little bit in terms of why we started posting reflections during the
Mhm,
pandemic. We did that because when we shifted to online things and all the physical distancing, we thought that we could help provide an anchor and a common theme for people. And of course, the
mhm,
themes would center around hope, faith, courage during the time when we needed those the
mhm,
most, when we were so shaken by what was happening because of the pandemic. And so when things started going back to on-site and face-to-face this year, I was feeling a little bit uneasy because while I appreciated that people were moving forward from our experiences of the past 2 years, and people were showing a lot of resiliency, that despite everything that went on, we were just so ready and open to resume things on a, so to speak, more regular or more normal
mhm,
capacity. I was just thinking that maybe we should not skip what we went through the past 2 years. And maybe we should be able to look back to it, process, and most importantly, maybe harness the learnings, the
mhm,
lessons that we could bring forward, so that as we move on, and I'd be happy for us to move on, but as we move on, we don't forget what we experienced, what we witnessed, what we felt, all in view of bringing all those so we can be better in the coming
mhm,
days. So that's why, together with the reflections, we decided to put some spaces and questions for reflection, so that people who would get a copy of the book journal would have a chance to write down what they were feeling, what they were thinking, what they witnessed also
mhm,
during the time of the pandemic, so we can bring together and harvest what that time, that very challenging time, could bring us in the future.
mhm. They say that all books are somewhat, at a certain degree, autobiographical. So does it have, yes? So where is this coming from?
um, and maybe that's the part why I was a bit reluctant to admit I'm the author, because people might see through the reflections. I mean, especially people who know me, they might say, "Oh, maybe that's why this was what she wrote on that day, because she was going through this or she was feeling this." But I would agree that this book might be autobiographical in a sense that it reflects perhaps my deepest desires for myself and for
Mhm,
people. Those desires of continuing to hope despite
mhm,
very dire circumstances. The desire to take courage, in the form of courage in terms of action, of being compassionate despite the very, very concrete temptation to just roll unto yourself and be
mhm,
selfish. And maybe the desire to keep faith. To keep faith in a time when we really didn't know what was happening, when we really couldn't see what would be coming to us in the next day. So I think in a sense it's autobiographical, because while I may not have those things all the time, the hope, the courage, the faith, but that's really a desire for me, for myself, and I hope for others as well, that no matter what life throws at us, we're able to keep hoping, we're able to take courage, we're able to hold on to faith.
Okay, so are these the same things that help you also tide over the pandemic?
I
Courage, compassion, hope.
Yes, yes. I would think so. And I believe so. And maybe add to that, of course, is love. I think during the time of the pandemic, it was very important that we knew where our sources of love could be, and of course, that's also a love for self. At the same time, that it's love for others and maybe even love for God. So yes, those were the things that tied me over, that gave me reason to go on and gave me reason to write these
Mhm.
reflection pieces every day. Because I think if we lost hope, if we lost courage, if we lost faith, we wouldn't find ourselves where we are right now, still existing, still living, still carrying on with our journeys. And I do think that we are able to do that because deep inside, we have these sparks of hope, of courage, and faith. And sometimes we need to fan them so they become stronger. But I would think that they would always be there. Or if we can find it inside ourselves, I'm sure we would find it in the people around us, or maybe even in the circumstances around us, just like what happened during the pandemic.
Mhm. Beautifully said, Miriam. Now, I can sense just from listening to you that this is also coming from a very strong religious background, right? Love for God, love for self, and also for people. Now, given that, how can we also apply this to people who are religiously agnostic?
Yes. Actually, maybe I'd like to caveat that a bit because personally, for myself, I'm not sure I'm as religious as some other people I would know, but I would like to believe that I'm spiritual.
All
And
right.
we all are. I do think we all are. There's a difference between religiosity and spirituality. Religiosity is, of course, more in terms of the faith perspective that you're taking, even the rituals, the traditions that you are following. Spirituality is, I think, really more internal. It's a way of relating with your God, if you have one, or with the divine, or even with creation, with the world, with others, with yourself. So it's not necessarily in terms of the traditions or the rituals that you follow in a more, so to speak, communal sense, because religion would mostly be made up of groups of people, and we would all be familiar in terms of what religions exist around us and in the world today. There's nothing wrong with being religious. I admire very much people who can keep to that. Maybe I'm just not as religiously religious as some others I know. But in terms of spiritual, I think that's what people who are not as religious can also go back to, even if it's really not a question of heaven, hell, etc., but it's really a way of relating with yourself, with others, with creation, even as
Mhm.
simple as how you relate with dogs and cats, or that we see around us. I think that's part of the spirituality, in a sense that it's more interior and it's more personal, and I think all of us would have that interiority. All of us would
Mhm.
have that person inside us that we would be dealing with, that we would
Mhm.
be facing, and that we would also be nourishing and nurturing, because I do think that spirituality is an invitation to nurture our deeper self, our inner self, so to speak. So I would believe that that's open to everyone. In a sense, self-care is an invitation to everyone, and self-care really means, together with the physical, or the more easily driven, like spas, etc., massage, which I love. There would also be the self-care that invites us to take care of our emotions, our mental health, etc. So
Mhm.
I think spirituality is an invitation to everyone. So even those who are not as religious might
Mhm.
find some comfort and nourishing when they go into their spiritual aspect.
Okay. So what we're saying right now is these are the things that we can do or where we can draw real strength and joy. Or would you
Yes.
like to add some more?
Yes, I think that spirituality really deals with our interiority. And I'm sure that everyone who's listening to us right now would have an experience of when we're so uncertain in terms of what we see outside of us.
Mhm.
There's much confusion, chaos, even
Mhm.
in the world. But if we look deep inside, maybe that's where we can find the peace, the quiet peace, the joy, and even our own truths, the truths that we can hang on to, the truths that we can believe. And to some extent, I would like to also believe that if we look deep inside well enough, we will see that we are good and we are worth fighting for and living for, and we are worth loving. So
Lovely, lovely. Yeah, a lot of people were really affected by the pandemic, and it was really hard because even they said that it's only 1 week, and then it was extended for another 2 weeks, and it became like indefinite. Like
yes,
there's no end to it. So I think it's not really the pandemic that made us anxious or somewhat mentally depressed, but rather the uncertainty about it because we don't know what to expect. And
yes.
if we don't know what to expect, then how can we act on it? So I think that's what most people suffered from during the pandemic.
Yes, and of course, add to that, I think the many news that we saw every day in terms of losses,
Mhm.
and the loss was in different levels. Loss of loved ones, loss of livelihood, and those things were very devastating. I would think that we have experienced that before the pandemic, and we will still experience that in the coming days. But perhaps the pandemic sort of highlighted it and multiplied it by 10 times. So
Mhm.
so it was really a different time, and that's why the reason for the book journal, it was really to be able for us to be able to process what we went through, so we can
Mhm.
bring what we learned, what we knew, from that time moving forward, so we can move forward well.
Mhm. That's very true. I don't want to be the messenger of bad news, but I've been reading the news, most especially about the economic landscape,
Yes.
and they're not very positive. Even the billionaires, who we would expect would not be very affected, but they are even they are ringing the alarm bells. They're saying that we need to brace for recession. We need to prepare for inflation. So they are saying things are not going to improve, but rather things are going becoming bleaker as we move on. And there was this one day, several days ago, several big name brands, large companies, those companies you think are too big to fail, but they lost billions of dollars collectively in the consumer markets, also in software, supply chain. Collectively, they lost billions of dollars in the U.S. stock market, and we know that we, the Philippines, we look at the U.S. as a as an example, right? If US is doing okay, we feel that we are doing okay because most of our businesses, they're tied to dollar peso transaction. So if something like that can happen to the US, then that would really get my interest. So it's a good thing that, as you have said, we have these experiences from the pandemic. As much as possible, we want to move forward. We want to live the new normal. However, we also need to process, because without processing, we will not be able to glean the lessons of the pandemic. We will not be able to reflect on the things that helped us, right? That helped us during the pandemic and can continue help us as we brace for more difficulties. And perhaps also we can reflect on the things that did not go well so that we can do them differently,
Yes.
right? So we can shift gears and help us navigate in this uncertain future.
Yes. I agree, and I want to point out that when we talk of processing, maybe not just about our pandemic experiences, but any experience that we may have had in the past, it's really not to open up old wounds and sort of keep on hurting from these wounds.
Mm-mm.
But it's really an invitation to sort of get what we can from that experience, so that whatever it is that have made us become better, we can keep
Mm.
on bringing it forward with us. And I often tell, when I give workshops and seminars, I often talk of this bank account. It can be a
Mm.
spiritual bank account, an emotional bank account that, we can save up in. Like, for example, experiences of hope, memories of good times with loved ones. And I'm sure during the pandemic, there were relationships that were nurtured even better because we might have tried harder due to the limitations, and so our relationships, some of our relationships might have even grown from that time. So, this
Mm.
emotional or spiritual bank account, we can keep on um, adding to it good memories, sources of hope, courage, of faith that we have experienced before, so that when it's more challenging, we can withdraw from that emotional or spiritual bank account that we deposited in to tide us over when times are dark, when times are uncertain. Because those things that are in our emotional or our spiritual bank account would be very concrete and real to us because we experience them ourselves. And so no one can tell us differently because we know them for ourselves, because they were our own experiences. And I think that moving forward, we might have to withdraw from those bank accounts every now and then, because life will not be easy. We hope
Mm.
it will be, but life will surely throw us curveballs, just like it did when it threw us the pandemic. And it might be good to have something to go back to, something to bring with us as we move forward. You mentioned that the economy might not be good. So if it's rather difficult to deposit in our usual bank account in terms of money, just please make sure that you fill your emotional, your mental well-being, and your spiritual bank account, so that in future, even if the economy will not get better, we can take a hold of ourselves, we can keep nurturing our hearts, and we can keep nourishing our well-being, because at the end of the day, those are the things that we can carry in the midst of all the challenges that life may bring us, including economic crisis.
Mhm. Wonderful. Thank you for underscoring that. And perhaps that's also where, again, compassion comes in, because we were hit differently by the pandemic. Some were not really affected, but some were adversely affected. They felt the rug pulled under them. So I suggest that we do not judge someone, right? If we feel that, why are you not why are you not um, doing well or coping well? Because
Yes.
again, we have different circumstances.
Yes. I agree. Compassion is a very, very great invitation to respond to. And I would like to say as well that, of course, compassion to others also springs from compassion to self. Um,
Mm.
and just like in the airplane, people say that put on your life jackets first, before you put a life jacket on another person, because we have to make sure that we're also taking care of ourselves, because really you cannot give what you don't have. So if we're a little unkind to ourselves, that also spills over to how we may be treating other people. So when I talk of compassion, when I talk of love, that's always a two-sided coin. It's compassion and love for self, and it's compassion and love for others. And I think that's a very, very deep, deep sense of spirituality, in a way that will not just be encompassed or hampered by any one kind of tradition or faith, or even what kind of God you believe in. But it really encompasses, I think, all human beings, compassion for self, compassion for others, love for self, and love for others.
Thank you for that, Miriam. I can really feel from behind the screen jumping right at me, that feeling of love, the feeling of compassion. And I'm sure that our viewers can also feel that as they're listening to us. So I'm loving this conversation. At this juncture, we'll go for a short break. And then, dear viewers, when Dr. Miriam Delos Santos joins us later after the break, we will be talking about her work also as a consultant in a leadership and organization expert. So stay tuned.
Juan Lu and his puppets face to face with special guests Makata Tawanan, Jess Box, and the Lunaria Marionette Show.
Salita. Alam mo, Tito Ando, kung wala ako, magsasalita ka nag-isa. Kung wala ako, wala kang masusuot. Kung wala ako, wala kang nakakain.
November 13, Sunday, 7 p.m. at the La Verdad Auditorium in Apalit, Pampanga. Buy your tickets now and see you soon, face to face.
Greenfield District, the future-ready district, home to Greenfield Tower, with its state-of-the-art fiber-optic internet backbone. Connectivity is built right into residences like Twin Oaks Place. 15 flourishing hectares right at the heart of Metro Manila, so that at work and at play, we can plant a future where dreams grow. Greenfield District, the future-ready district.
TNC is a live stream platform for online shows for people on the go. Please watch all our shows as seen on the screen. Imagine having your own show, your own playlist, your own content, but we make it easier for you. TNC aims to transform the lives of our viewers through engaging, authentic, and original content. Our vision is to become a global 24/7 live stream channel that showcases Filipino talent, global influencers, cultural intelligence, and ingenuity. And also, thank you for supporting Stories from the Fringe, live streamed every Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Philippine Standard Time. You can watch live or on replay via Facebook or YouTube. Follow us on IG, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just search hashtag TNC Now. For sponsorships, please email now at thenewchannel.com or send us a DM. Enjoy these life-changing shows because we made them just for you. It's 45 days to go before Christmas. Wow, how time flies. All right. So again, I'd like to thank those who are supporting the show. Thank you for tuning in. Melvin Phillips from India, Rwanda Roberto, and also Juan Lu Lonaria from Antipolo. So TNC also invites everyone to watch the Philippine Ambassador of Puppetry and Talentadong Pinoy Hall of Famer and our very own Tito Juan Lu, along with his cast of puppets in Juan Lu and his puppets face to face. That's on November 13, 2022, Sunday, 7 p.m., live at La Verdad Auditorium, Apalit, Pampanga, Philippines. Wonderful. All right, so our guest today is again Dr. Miriam Delos Santos of Ateneo de Manila, and she shared with us her book about Despite the Distance. This is a book journal to reflect on the pandemic. So she also shared us some strategies on how we can move forward after difficult challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic and where we can draw real strength and joy. So shall we call on Dr. Miriam De Los Santos again?
Hi.
Hi. All
Hi.
right. So Miriam, you wear a lot of hats. So aside from being a writer, you are also a trainer and consultant. So can you tell more about these consulting services that you offer?
Yes, thank you. I love being a consultant and a trainer because I meet different kinds of people. And the way I see my mission and my vocation is that I really am very happy to be able to journey one-on-one with individuals, which I think is very important. The personalized, so to speak, approach, to be able to
Mhm.
journey with one person at a time. Together with that, through my consultancies, I'm also able to journey with groups of people, organizations, and to work at a more systemic or structural level, because I do think that we have to we have to provide some very good support on a systematic and structural level, together with nourishing and caring for individuals. I do think that those two are the right approaches so that we can have meaningful journeys. And that's one, the journey individually. That's why I do leadership trainings, and I have been very blessed to work with and journey with different leaders. And encountering different phases of leadership in their life. So some may still be emerging leaders, others are on a higher, so to speak, level of leadership. There are those who are informal leaders but are very, very much important to their community and who create such difference where they are. And so that's one thing I really enjoy, journeying with individuals. At the same time, I feel really blessed and challenged when I am able to look at the organization as a whole in terms of systems, structures, the organization in general, their procedures, their plans, etc. Because I do think that's the other important thing to look at, together with individuals. That's the organization, that's the group of people, the systematic, the structural, the procedural ways in which we approach things. So that's why I do these kinds of consultancies and trainings. There would be some that are geared towards individual formation and development. There would be those at the organizational level. And I think those two approaches are very special in a way. They give different kinds of challenges, but at the same time, they also provide very, very unique blessings for me and hopefully for the people and the organizations I accompany.
Mhm. I remember zooming in and zooming out, and also the principle of the balcony and the dance floor.
Yes.
Where,
Yes.
yes, you have to think systems thinking, and also taking care, nurturing the individuals, making that system work. Because
Yes.
otherwise,
Yes.
the systems and the procedures will fall flat.
Yes. 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 I agree.
Correct.
Organizations are always made up of people. That's why it's very important to look after each person in the organization. At the same
Mhm.
time, it's also very important to have good structures, systems, plans, implementation, etc. at the organizational level. Because as they say, there's really more power when more people are on board, and that's why organizations are formed, companies and institutions are born, because each person is important, but really link or sync. That's what they say these days. Remember, you have to link up. You have to be able to find the right-minded and right-hearted people to work with. That's why organizations are very important as well.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, because organizations are now learning from the mistakes of the past, that we need to have more human designed and more human centered organizations. Because otherwise, if no one, you don't have the buy-in of the very people you are trying to serve, then nothing's gonna happen.
Yes.
Now, I as you have mentioned, it's very fulfilling to you to work with organizations, but I'm sure that it's not always sunshine and rainbows. So, what are some of the common challenges that you have experienced while working with these organizations?
Challenges when I work with organizations can come from the external and the internal environment. External can mean in terms of the landscape of their industry. You mentioned earlier about some economic challenges. Of course, if it's a for-profit organization, that will always be something in their purview, to know what's going on within their industry, how competitive they ought to be, etc. So there are external challenges to each organization. At the same time, there would be internal challenges, and this can range from one, there might be some differences in terms of approaching some matters within the organization, to sometimes birthing pains. Organizations really go through birthing pains, and when I do consultancies with organizations who are relatively younger, or who are restarting or changing some things in their organization, I always tell them that, let's really keep calm, because these are just birthing pains. You will get over this, and hopefully you will move on to other kinds of challenges. But we have to recognize that these are some challenges that we face, are those that really come when we start or restart things in the organization. So other challenges that I've encountered is, I mentioned about differences, but not just differences in terms of how to go about things, but sometimes it's really differences of personalities. Um, you know, Maybe to put it a little bit roughly, people rubbing each other the wrong way. But in fact, they might have the same vision, they might have the same goals for the organization. So the invitation there is really to move past the individual differences, the individual chemistries, to work towards the common goal that they are setting for themselves and for the others in their organization. So those are the things that I can think of right now without divulging my clients.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, after this pandemic, I'm pretty sure that businesses are now picking up the pieces. And what are the usual interventions that we need for the organizations to recover from the pandemic, per your experience?
Yes. I I probably don't want to speak on a generic way, because I think each organization has to be looked at in a very specific manner to be able to give the right kind of advice, or to be able to map out their own particular journeys. But perhaps in a more general sense, one, I would like to imagine that coming from something difficult, one important thing that organizations have to look at is how their people are doing, the well-being of their people. There might be some tendency to be very output driven, especially if you're running after some losses of the past and you want to make up for it. And so I have seen that people maybe organizations may be very output driven. And while I understand it and I appreciate even that drivenness, I always advise my partners, as I call my clients, to look after your people. Ask about their well-being. Ask how they're doing. Because at the end of the day, your business, your organization is made up of these people. I have, and maybe perhaps especially coming from the pandemic, when we see some gifts it revealed to us, like working from home, the balance of doing your own personal tasks while dealing with work, etc. I think we can learn from those things in terms of properly balancing out and looking at the welfare of our being, so that they can also more meaningfully contribute to the organization, and thus the organization can move more effectively and more efficiently towards their goals. So that's one. Look after your people. Ask how your people are doing. Second is review the landscape. Review your industry's landscape. I'm pretty sure so many things have changed compared to 2 years ago. And I have been very, very happy with the organizations who adapted quickly, or maybe not even quickly, but in a very strategic manner, recognizing the challenges and the needs during the time of the pandemic. And now that things seem to be normalizing in a certain way. So that's the second thing I want to say. Look at your environment, look at the landscape, look at what's happening. Whenever I do planning, vision, mission, strategic planning for the year, it's always important to see what's going on in the industry, in the country, and even the world. Recently I told one of my friends who I'm doing a consultancy with, I said, some people may have a sense that the conflicts, for example, in Russia, might be very far away from us here in the Philippines, but nothing is really far from us these days. And I think with the pandemic, we realize how close we all are with each other. And so it's very important to know what's going on. But the third thing I would also like to say is be discerning as well. Be discerning about what info is important. Be discerning about what truly matters to you as a person and to you as an organization. So it's, I think, because of the many confusions that we can encounter, it's really important to know what is true for you, what is important for you. And that applies for both individuals and organizations. You have to be able to sift through the many things happening in the world and be discerning, and know which ones really matter, and know which path really is the right one for you to pursue. So maybe those three things for now.
So many gems here, and my hands cannot keep up. I'm taking so many notes, but I love this. I love this conversation. So number one, you mentioned about always take care of your people. Again, we go back to the people, and you mentioned, as much as possible, open avenues for communication to let them know that you care for them. And I have been also reading about the mass layoffs of people, not only from small companies but also big companies. Twitter just slashed 50% of its workforce, and now Facebook is also planning on letting go of some people. So I'm pretty sure that that would again account for mental anxiety, depression, many people being affected. And I know that some companies, they can afford to have an on-site doctor in the company to make sure that the physical well-being of the employees are are being taken care of. Now, my hope is companies will also consider the importance of having maybe not a resident, but at least a visiting psychologist or a visiting mental health certified mental health first responder, so that the employees can have professional help if they need. And not only that, perhaps we can also make it part of training and development to have everyone in the company a basic understanding of mental well-being, how to take care of their own mental well-being, and for at least for supervisors and up, have knowledge of advanced psychological first aid, so that they can already know from their one-on-ones with their team members who are showing signs of hidden depression, so that we will be able to nip the problem in the bud. So that's my hope, that companies, they will also invest in these things, not only on machinery or equipment, but also on the mental well-being of their people. And then also look at the environment. I like that also, Miriam. Look at the global and the local and the global issues that are affecting us directly and indirectly. I love it that you highlighted about the war in Ukraine, because yes, some people, they may say, oh, that's in Europe. It doesn't affect us in any way. But if you really look at the supply chain, some of the materials that we use for our equipment, like copper and also aluminum and even grains, we don't and then even if most of our oil is coming from from Saudi or other countries in Asia, in a way we're still affected, because if there's one breakdown in the process, there will be a breakdown in the whole process. So I like this. Encouraging people to think outside of the box, outside of their comfort zone.
Yes. I agree. I agree. Yes. And
I
the
can see you nodding.
and again, the third thing is to be discerning, to be able to sift through the many things that we can hear and see, to know what really matters for us as persons and as organizations. I think that's very important. We can get overwhelmed, but at the end of the day, even when I do strategic planning, it's really important to see, okay, what does this mean for us, and
Yes.
where can we take this information that we know. So I think it's very important to be discerning as well.
Yes, that's very important, especially now that we are moving to the digital space. We have the multiverse. People are now buying up real estate in the metaverse, and most of our waking hours, right? Like myself, my work is mostly remote work, so I spend a lot of time on my computer. Now if I don't have that kind of discernment, and we know that algorithms, right, they can suck you in, like
Yes.
you just go to Google, and there will it will show you a news, even though you did not read it for more than 5 minutes, but the algorithm will identify it as something that you want to see, and it will recommend you, suggest to you similar news. So if you're not very discerning and disciplined, before you knew it, you were scrolling mindlessly through the digital space. So it's the same thing in business. If we don't know what matters, we can be easily swept up by the trivial things. And also, for those who are trying to build their business, doing startup businesses right now, some of us have the tendency to chase after the new shiny object. So you never get to finish something, because you're halfway here, one fourth here, three fourths here, and then you see another shiny object, and you chase after it, and before you knew it, you all have like this things with loose ends, never really finishing anything.
Yes, yes. And I think one addition I might want to make is self care. Self care is very important. It cuts across all three that I mentioned in terms of taking care of your people, knowing your landscape, and be discerning. I think self
Yes.
care is very important, and self can mean individuals. Self can also mean organizational well being, to make sure that all the systems, the procedures, and the structures in your organization are adding to the well-being of the persons in the organization as a whole, rather than hampering them down. So yeah.
Mhm. Wonderful. So we're close to the bottom of the hour, Miriam. So if there are any three things that you would like our viewers to take away from this conversation, what are those three things?
Huh. Three things. First, I'm very big on self-compassion and self-love. I think
Mhm.
that's very important. But let me caveat that by saying that self-compassion and self-love would not be equal to being selfish, or would
Mhm.
not be equal to simply dealing with the material side of things. That's important sometimes, but at the same time, true compassion and true love and true care for the self goes beyond the material. So I do hope that people find their rhythm in terms of how to love themselves, how to care for their needs, and how to look after their own well-being. Every time I give a self-care session, I always tell people that it's different for each person,
Mhm.
and so I do hope that every listener who's tuned in right now will find your own rhythm of the proper self-care. And self-care will also include looking at your own heart, at the deepest core of who you are, to find your inner joy, your inner peace that no other person or nothing in the world can take
Mhm.
away from you. So maybe that's one, self-compassion and
Mhm.
self-love. Second, what other thing would I want to say? Second is, I guess, to always remember that we are connected. And that's really what the pandemic taught us. If one person doesn't wear a mask, we're all we're all in possible peril at the time of the pandemic. But these days, perhaps when we don't wear masks as much,
Mhm.
we still have to remember that we're all connected, one way or the other. And it would be good to always think of what my actions can bring to other people, at the same time, what other people can bring to me. And so
Mhm.
ideally there might be some mutual respect and understanding there, but at the same time, hopefully we also get to provide the right opportunities for each person we encounter to be the good person that we all are, I believe, deep inside.
Mhm.
Second, let's all remember that we are connected, with or without the pandemic.
Mhm.
The third thing I want to say is perhaps enjoy. Enjoy, find moments of enjoying, laughing, smiling. And I say this even when I do consultancies with organizations and things are so serious, when I'm handling vision mission sessions, planning for the next year, etc. I keep telling my clients that yes, we'll really take this seriously. We'll take everything seriously, because if it's bread and butter that we're talking about, profit, salaries, etc., those are very serious matters, and we take things seriously. But at the same time, handle it lightly. Not
Uh-huh.
everything has to feel like we're lugging several kilos on our shoulders, right? So we take things seriously, but we can deal with it lightly.
Mhm.
So I want to say that
Yes.
to everyone, I hope we also find that right balance of taking things seriously, but looking at it lightly, in a sense that, and this is my personal mantra. I've written this in another book for me to remember. Just do what you can, give it your best, but at the end of each day, leave space for grace. So
Okay.
we do everything that we can, all that's in our power. But at the same time, we know that some things are outside of our concern, are outside of our control. And so we
Mhm.
allow grace, or in other terms, synchronicity or what have you, to take the rightful place in the scheme of things, such that we're not lax because we do our best. But at the same time, we acknowledge that there's a rhythm
Mhm.
that that plays along with the best that we give in what we do. So maybe those three things. I'm sure there's more, but those are the three things that come to me right now.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for those three tips. I love the third one the best because I have to remind myself to give myself grace when things don't go out the way I planned them. I have this internal struggle not to beat myself not to beat myself up for it. But because you can only plan so much, but there are other, as you've said, things outside your control. Thank you so much again, Miriam. This has been a wonderful conversation. How can our viewers continue to to connect with you through social media channels? Do you have upcoming projects that you would like to share with our audience?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to invite everyone, if you can get a copy of the book journal. It's Despite the Distance, a book journal to reflect on the pandemic. And inside, you will see some reflection pieces together with spaces and questions for reflection to allow us to harvest what we have gone through the past 2 years so we can move forward better. And this book is available in the Jesuit Communications Foundation website, JESCOM Philippines. You can also contact us directly in the office, omi@ateneo.edu. And at the same time, for those of you who might want to be in touch with me for one reason or the other, I may also be contacted via Delos Santos at ateneo.edu and edu. So I hope that we continue engaging one another so that we can bring more hope, more courage, more faith, and more love to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. We look forward to the all the best to your book, and we will also be looking forward for more books that you will come up with in the future. Brilliant, brilliant. So, dear viewers, thank you for spending your Thursday morning with us. Our guest next week has a background in private wealth management, economic research, and consulting before joining the BPO industry in 2005. She has been with some of the pioneer BPO companies in the Philippines, like ICT Marketing Services, also eTelecare, Stream Services, crossing from operations to client services. So tune in again next Thursday, November 17th, 10:30 a.m. to listen in on our conversation with Christine Bondo. So thank you once again for being here with us. Have a good rest of your day or evening, depending where you are in the world. God bless everyone.